Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Raising Cane studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane studio downtown in the capital city on this Tuesday. Hope your work week's off to a good start. Appreciate you hanging out with us on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Mel Kiper's got a mock draft out. There's something very interesting about this mock draft as it relates to the Saints pick. And I want to talk about that in 15 minutes. Glen West will be with us at the bottom of the hour talking Tigers. LSU got a basketball commitment last night. Got to be honest, that surprised me a little bit. We'll preview LSU and McNeese tonight. Got an ESPN list of the key college football returning players for every top 25 team. LSU is one of those. Who do they see as the key returner for LSU in 2026? And we'll talk to Sharif Ishak about the black and gold at 2:30. It's combine time, so we'll talk a little bit about that with Sharif. So let's crank it up how we do every single day with our opening drive.
Welcome to the big league.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive. Presented by Fabry Chevrolet GMC in St. Francisville.
So I got to one of my baseball season pastimes this morning, which is pulling up the old stat sheet and seeing what pops. And today was pretty easy. I got to it pretty quickly. And it fascinated me, so I wrote about it at LouisianaSports.net, and we'll see how you digest this, but it's about Stephen Milam and what he's done through 8 games for this team. It's interesting because if you've watched this team play 4 games, or you've watched this team play 8 games, all of them, or you've kind of paid attention, you probably haven't really noticed Stephen Milam. There's not been really much of anything that has grabbed anyone's attention about Stephen Milam. And as I got to thinking about that, I got to thinking that that's what makes him so good. Sometimes the things he does don't show up on a stat sheet. And keep in mind, I'm aware they've played 8 games, and most of the 8 games, if not all of the 8 games, have been against vastly underwhelming competition as it relates to SEC competition, as it relates to Omaha competition. I know that. You know that. It's a disclaimer that I toss out there at this time of year, but we're all on the same page here. I'm not overreacting to 8 games against Kent State and Milwaukee and Indiana, and I don't even remember what in-state team they played last week.
Wasn't it Southeastern?
Nichols.
Oh, Nichols.
Doesn't matter. They're all the same. Whatever. Point being, I know, you know, but I still think this is interesting because we have a track record on Stephen Milam. Like, statistically speaking, batting average is a gaudy stat. Home runs are a gaudy stat. Runs driven in are a gaudy stat. And then you think of, like, high leverage moments, which LSU hasn't had a lot of this year. And Stephen Milam hasn't hit a home run this year. He's driven in 7. That's not exactly anything to write home about. He's not been a gaudy offensive player. In fact, he's got the lowest batting average of any of LSU's regulars. He's tied with Derek Curriell. Now, because of the competition and the short sample size, that's 333. So it's not like he's off to some catastrophic start. He's 10 out of 30. He's hitting the ball well. But Jake Brown's hitting 459, and Seth Dardar's hitting 400, and Mason Braun's hitting 389, and Cade Arambede's hitting 367 with 3 homers, and Zach York's hitting 360 with 3 homers. And you get the point. Stephen Milam, relative to his peers in this lineup, has not been super gaudy in that way. But what has Stephen Milam done? Well, he struck out in his first at-bat on Sunday. Why do I point that out? It's a blowout win for LSU. They ruled him. He's hitting 330. Why do I point out a meaningless first-inning strikeout? Well, it was his first and only strikeout of the season. We're 8 games in. Brown struck out 4 times. Aaron Beatty struck out 8 times. Curiel struck out 7 times. Milam's got 1. He was far and away LSU's best strikeout rate in the starting lineup last year as well. He is consistently putting the ball in play. He is moving base runners. He is making college defenses make plays. He is making pitchers work. He's not going to go down very quickly on 4 pitches and strike out. He's going to foul pitches away. He's going to extend bats. That doesn't show up on the stat sheet other than the strikeout number. No one ever really looks at the strikeout number. You're looking at what the production is. The Stephen Milam is an elite contact guy, and that's not something you notice all the time. Also, free bases. Stephen Milam has walked 6 times and been hit by a pitch 4 times. That hit by pitch number leads the team. The 10 free bases he's drawn, only Seth Dardar has drawn more. Seth Dardar's got 11. Stephen Milam has 10. Again, not something that's flashy or gaudy. That's not going to show up on Wheels' YouTube clip that he drew a walk. But he does that as well as anybody on the team. His on-base percentage is .500. The discrepancy between his batting average and on-base percentage is the largest on the team. He gets on base. He doesn't strike out. And that's just half the game. What about defense? You're 8 games in. Stephen Milam, no errors. None. Another thing that's not going to show up on the stat sheet, not going to show up on the highlight tape on YouTube, LSU's not going to clip it when he just goes and makes a backhand play and throws the runner out. Or when there's a bit of a tricky hop that he smothers with those incredible hands and flips it over to first base. That's not something that catches the highlight tape. It's not something that's super gaudy. But he does it every game. He played every game at shortstop last year for LSU. He made 5 errors on the season. 5. Being consistent in the field on the easy plays. Being consistent at the plate, not giving bats away and striking out. Playing every day. This is the superpower of Stephen Milam. Now, he's going to hit. He's going to hit around 300. I think he's going to hit 10 home runs. He's going to play elite defense. And there are times where he gets piping hot. Of course, we remember last year in Super Regional play in Omaha, he was LSU's best hitter. He has the ability at times to carry the offense. He's done it. He did it as a freshman, walk-off homer against South Carolina. He was probably their best hitter in the Chapel Hill Regional. Hit a walk-off home run in the Chapel Hill Regional. Like, he's got that. It's not like he's some punch-and-Judy hitter who never does anything offensively and hits 8th. He hits 3rd. He hits 2nd. He hits 4th. But he hasn't gotten off to this gaudy start like Jake Brown has. He's just been rock solid. He's just been steady. As a football analogy, he's the right tackle that you don't even notice is there. He's just doing his job. In basketball, he's the power forward who's playing good defense. He's grabbing 9.5 rebounds. He's shooting 80% from the foul line. He's not averaging 18 a game. He's averaging 9. But he's just giving you exactly what you need. And at shortstop, you got to have it. And he's hitting in a leverage spot in LSU's order. But it's early in the season. It's poor competition. But I just think the consistency that Milam plays with is special. And as I mentioned, he can carry the team offensively, defensively on Friday. For those that didn't purchase and watch the games this weekend, there are spectacular things on defense, no doubt. In Friday's game, he goes deep in the hole, backhand on a slide, pop-up slide, missile across the diamond in time. Review upheld it. Then just moments later, and I put this in the story I wrote at LouisianaSports.net, they hit a high chopper over the mound, over Case and Evans' head, and Milam came in, and he gloves it on the short hop, gets it into his hand just lightning fast, and throws a seed right across the diamond in time. Just incredible versatility and ability to go back into the left, back into the right, up into the left, and make those plays. It's just, he's awesome at that. My favorite shortstop to watch at LSU in my time down here in Baton Rouge, and I got here in 2007 baseball-wise, has been Austin Nola. Bregman made some highlight reel plays, but Austin Nola for 4 years was an elite shortstop defensively for LSU. And he was my favorite. And Bregman made some great plays, and Thompson had a big arm. It was fun to watch. But I think Milam is the best defender at shortstop. Probably my favorite shortstop to watch since I've been down in Baton Rouge over the last 20 years. You go an entire season last year, make 5 errors, and 2 of them were actually in one super regional game, which is crazy. I looked that back up. I didn't even remember that. But at this point in the season, we're going to be talking about Brown. We're going to be talking about York. We're going to be talking about Aaron Beatty, and we should be because they've been awesome. And we'll talk about the depth of the staff, and we'll talk about the velocity everybody throws with. And I just don't know how quickly Stephen Milam's name is going to come to the forefront of like what stood out in 8 games. But if you look at the stat sheet and you pay attention to the games and you understand what matters in winning baseball, he's doing it. I said something that is going to end up looking very foolish on the preview show that I did with Musso that we put up on YouTube. I said at that point, which was late January or very, very early February, I said, look, I'm not sure that I would take another shortstop in the country over Stephen Milam. And I said the name, Rock Chalowski at UCLA, obviously Justin LeBron at Alabama. Unfortunately, Kentucky shortstop got hurt on opening weekend. But those are the guys that come up first in this discussion and are likely first-round picks. And Milam is not likely a first-round pick. Of course, he's 5'9", which doesn't help. And I said I'm not sure I would take any. And I didn't mean that at the time. I think I was skewed by the fact that the Rock Chalowski that I saw in Omaha didn't really produce. Like, I saw him for a couple games with my own eyes. He played good defense, but he didn't hit worth a flip. And I saw Milam ripping balls all over the yard. And I just thought, well, maybe he's feasting on the Big Ten. He's got a lot of ability. You can tell he's naturally gifted. Maybe that's an upside thing. I know what I've got in Milam. He's a proven college force. And Chalowski's gone out there and hit 1 billion home runs, and he torched TCU over the weekend. I think he leads the country in home runs, and he's going to be the first pick in the draft. And I would take him over Stephen Milam. He's a more dynamic player at this point. But I will be very, very comfortable every single game that LSU goes out there to play tonight against McNeese in the last game of the College World Series with number 4 penciled in at shortstop for LSU, because Milam does the things that you need to do to win games. He does them consistently. He's got a track record now that's 3 years, going on 3 years long, and he's sensational. And it's not sensational in hitting 388 with 22 homers. It's sensational of, I'm going to give you a good at bat. I'm going to move the baseball. I'm going to catch the baseball. I'm going to make the routine play. And at times, I'll be the best player on the field. And that's a really, really comforting thing to have at shortstop. Stephen Milam's given that to LSU. So I wrote about it at LouisianaSports.net, wanted to talk about it at the top of the day's show, and so thought we'd get into that, which we did. Take a time out. When we come back, I'm fascinated by an aspect of Mel Kiper's mock draft today. Not necessarily who he has the Saints picking, but what the Saints war room could look like once they're on the clock. We'll talk about that next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Fabry Chevrolet GMC, they bring your opening drive each and every day. They're on Highway 61 in St. Francisville. Fabry family took over on October the 1st. They've been in business in Baton Rouge 35 years. They've got 3 locations, 5 brands. You know them. You've had wonderful experiences with them. That's what you're going to get with the Fabry family. The city of Baton Rouge means a lot to them, and the surrounding area means a lot to them, and they are thrilled to reach up into St. Francisville on Highway 61 with their Chevrolet GMC store. Looking for a truck? They got you covered here in February. Chevy Silverado's up to $11,000 off MSRP or 1.9 APR financing. Looking for a GMC Sierra? Up to $13,000 off MSRP, 0.0 APR financing. Incredible deals. They've also got Tahoes. They've got Yukons, Denali's. Looking for a truck? Looking for an SUV? Look no further than Fabry Chevrolet GMC, Highway 61 in St. Francisville. Of course, that entire inventory is online at FabryChevrolet.com, FabryChevrolet.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
March Madness is heading to Las Vegas, and LouisianaSports.net is sending one of you plus a friend with it. We're giving away a 3-night Las Vegas getaway from Wednesday, March 18th through Saturday, March 21st, just in time to watch all the madness. Hotels, stay, and flights covered. All you have to do to enter is head to LouisianaSports.net, click the March Madness getaway link, sign up now before our March Madness Pick'em launches. Get yourself entered, and you could be watching the tournament from Las Vegas instead of your couch. Winners will be announced Monday, March 2nd.
All right, let's talk a little Saints. I have not spent a lot of time diving into mock drafts. I have seen a couple and gone to the Saints pick, and for local reasons have looked for Mansour Lane as well. But I haven't looked at like the rhythm of how the draft could shake out. We're still a good ways away. Like it feels like it's close because, hey, look, there's the combine but like we're still a good ways away from the actual draft. But it is that time of year, and the NFL dominates the news cycle. And I'm looking up at the TV right now, and they're talking about the combine, and everybody's descending on Indianapolis, and we've got coverage coming at LouisianaSports.net from there. And it is time to start discussing it. And so I looked at Mel Kiper's mock draft from this morning. And more so than the Saints' actual selection, something else struck me, and it's very, very positive for New Orleans. Let me walk you through this to get to the Saints selection at number 8. Because we know the Saints have needs pretty much all over the board. We know that one of them is not quarterback. Now, the one bummer about this is that it doesn't feel like at this point anybody's running up behind the Raiders at 1 to go get a quarterback. The next quarterback in Mel's mock is Simpson at like 21 or something. It's way back. So usually when you have a quarterback and you're towards the front of the draft, you love when other teams jump up to take quarterbacks that you have no interest in. It bumps guys down to you. That isn't happening in Mel's mock, and I feel like it's pretty unlikely. I don't know that anybody's running to the 6th spot in the draft to go get Ty Simpson. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see that. But let's walk through this and see what is available to the Saints in this scenario. He's got the Raiders taking Mendoza at quarterback. He's got the Jets taking Caleb Downs at safety. Great player. He's got the Cardinals taking David Bailey, the outside linebacker edge rusher from Texas Tech. He's got the Titans taking Arfel Reese from Ohio State, who's a linebacker edge guy. He's got Spencer Fano, offensive tackle from Utah, going to the Giants. Then the Browns at 6 take Carnell Tate at wide receiver. And the Commanders at 7 take another linebacker. This one is Sonny Styles from Ohio State. That leaves the Saints at 8 here. And I wanted to look what's behind the Saints. Like, what would the Saints have the option to do here? Let me just read you, starting with the Saints pick, which Mel has them taking Mekhi Lemon, the wide receiver from USC. I'm okay with that. But he's an option, obviously. Look at the names still on the board when the Saints pick at this spot. The 9th pick is Jeremiah Love to the Chiefs. The 10th pick is Ruben Bain from Miami, the edge rusher to the Bengals. The 11th pick is Francis Mauigoa, the tackle/guard from Miami, who everyone thinks is going to be a stud. Mansour Lane goes 12 here to the Cowboys, the corner. And then Jermod McCoy goes to the Rams here, the other corner from Tennessee at 13. And then Jordan Tyson goes 14 to Arizona State. In the 6 picks after the Saints make a selection of a guy that I think fits in and is a good player in Mekhi Lemon, the Saints could absolutely take Jeremiah Love. They could absolutely take Ruben Bain. They could absolutely take Francis Mauigoa. They could absolutely take Mansour Lane. They could absolutely take Jermod McCoy. And they could absolutely take Jordan Tyson. All of those picks I would look at and go, that's good. And in this scenario, they're all there. And it's an interesting spot the Saints are in because they have the flexibility. Like 2 years ago, you looked at this thing, or 3 years ago, and you're like, they're going to have to take a tackle in this spot. And probably the same thing 2 years ago when they've done it 2 years in a row with Penning, and they did it in that case with Fuaga, and then Banks was next. But you felt like they were a little bit pigeonholed. They're really not. And so what it comes down to is, in this scenario, I don't think it's ludicrous to suggest that those 6 guys I just rattled off, like 4 will be really good and 2 will be stars. I mean, they're top 15 picks in the draft, right? Maybe there's a bust or 2. The Saints have certainly had their fair share of busts in the first round. So maybe my math is off. Maybe it's 2 stars, 2 really good, a fringe starter, and a bust. But there's not 4 busts I just rattled off there. And they're all at like perceived positions of need for the Saints. And I could be on board with any of them. Jordan Tyson's interesting right now because of the injury that's holding him out of the combine. And Mauigoa would be another offensive linemen, which you continue to do. And Jeremiah Love's controversial because of the position he plays. Bain is a little bit on the short side for that spot, 6'3". Like, I can come up with the little counter argument, but like, these are big-time college players, and they're all on the board. And so in this scenario, like, you don't have to look at it and go, oh, gosh, I hope he falls. I hope that guy falls. I'm talking about 6 options here. And the fact of the matter is that 1 or 2 of those guys is probably going to go ahead of the Saints, but who's it at the expense of? Carnell Tate, who falls to you? Arvell Reese falls to you? Like, I don't – that's a possibility because there are only so many picks in front of you. There's just 7. So you wish it was quarterback, but in fact, I think the depth of this draft at the top is just really, really good. And as I continue, it was just an interesting, like, thing for my eyes and my brain to work together on as I was scrolling down the ESPN article, because I got Mekhi Lemon to the Saints at 8, and then I scrolled down. I was like, oh, there's Jeremiah Love next. And I was like, oh, there's Ruben Bain next. Like, oh, there's Malinois next. There's Mansour Delane next. Like, it just kept happening. I was like, okay, that worked. That works. I feel like the Saints are in such a good spot in this draft. And it goes back to the point that we were talking about in the season of like winning a couple of games, because I just don't think that winning those couple of games late and maybe costing yourself 3 spots in the draft, like for a quarterback, that's a huge deal because your grades are going to be wildly different. And like, you're going to prioritize this guy over that guy. And like, if he's gone, it's over. In this case, the Saints moving back from like 3 or 4 to 8, it hasn't hurt at all. Look at the volume of players that are sitting right there for you in this spot. And now the Saints brass has an opportunity to really, really heavily scout the 14 guys in this mix. Really sink your resources into it and make sure that you've got 2 or 3 that you pounce on and then hit best available on your board. There's a varying degrees of confidence in the Saints front office from the fan base right now. There was a time 5 years ago, pretty high. There was a time 6 months ago, excruciatingly low. And you feel like just because that Shuck pick feels really good, and look, they're up for an award this week at the Combine, Best Draft of 2025, and I would give it to them. Like, I'm not an expert on all the drafts throughout the league, but like, I would have a hard time believing that many teams did significantly better than the Saints did. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they won that award. And so you got that plus the late season wins, and now the confidence starts to come back a little bit. And then you look at what's possible here. When you have the 26th pick, 1, you've had a pretty good year, but 2, these mock drafts are brutal because there's too much volatility with 25 picks in front of you. You got 7 picks in front of you. You got a pretty decent idea of how this thing's going to shake out. If a guy's not the 2nd pick, he's the 5th pick. It's not there either way. And if the guys that are likely there in this scenario are probably going to be there when the Saints pick, it's a very, very positive position for the Saints to be in. And they've got an opportunity in this spot to grab a Pro Bowl caliber player early in this player's career, no matter really where that spot is. That's the expectation when you pick in the 8th spot. I hope they don't pick 8th again for a long time, but you're in it now, and this looks like a really good spot for the organization. Jordan, you let me rattle through all that. That's a lot of good names.
It's a lot of good names, and that's why you're sitting there at the end of the rainbow, like the little leprechaun sitting there with a pot of gold. You really can go best player available. As the days go on, I'm liking Lemon even more because, seeing what Tyson sitting out of the Combine, at least Lemon's going to show up and be there. I like to see that. They said he might not run a 40, so, we'll see. But I understand he's a smaller receiver on that end. But if you're really bought in with Vele, not saying you're bought in because he's like 28, 27 years old, but if you really think you're going to run it back with Vele, then he's not a Rashid Shaheed because people are like, oh, well, we already had the 2 small receivers, but Lemon's more of an actual receiver than Shaheed is. Like, his hands are like he actually won the blitz.
He's closer to Olave than Shaheed.
Than Shaheed, so it can work. It's just you're going to have you don't want to be the team that drafts the bust out of all those picks. Like, you don't want to be – when we're looking back at it, seeing all these names like,
that'll be on the Saints because there will be dudes that go after the Saints pick. like dudes that go after that pick. And if you don't have one, that'll look pretty poorly.
Oh, most definitely. Because, again, we've seen what happened like when they drafted Jalen Reagor. The Eagles drafted Jalen Reagor and left Justin Jefferson on the board.
Yep.
Like, there's all these guys, another draft where it's still deep just like that. You don't want to be the team that selects this guy and then the guy after that's an all-pro Hall of Famer, Pat Surtain type of ordeal. So, man, I just think unlike lemons, cool, but you just got to take best player available.
It's a good spot. The Saints are in at 8. I know that they're going to have an opportunity to do something really good. It's just a matter of whether or not the front office can make that happen. We shall see. We'll talk some Tigers with Glen West coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
February's Heart Month. It's a great time to focus on your overall health and your wellness. My friends at Auctioner want to make sure that you do. You know, heart disease is the number one cause of death for men and women, but so often it is preventable. Try to manage your stress if you can. Try to get enough sleep. Avoid smoking, limit alcohol, and stay active. Get your regular exercise, eat that balanced diet that's rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and contact your primary care provider. They're your partner in prevention, helping monitor blood pressure, cholesterol, overall heart health. Get those regular checkups because early detection and guidance can keep you on track for a healthy heart. Make your heart health a priority in this Heart Month. Schedule your primary care appointment at auctioner.org/BR. Primary small steps today lead to a stronger heart tomorrow. Check in with your doctors. Make sure you're on track for a healthy 2026. There are locations throughout Louisiana. You can find them online at auctioner.org.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Moving right along on this Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Glen West, senior writer at Go247, joins us on Tuesdays talking Tigers. He's here with us now on the Tim's Firearms Hotline. Glenn, how are you?
Doing great, Hunt. How about yourself?
Doing all right. Is LSU going to win in basketball tomorrow? Ole Miss isn't that good.
Look, they have a shot, right? I mean, they played pretty competitively in these last couple of games against teams that, quite honestly, probably should have beaten them by 15 points or so. But they've been hanging around in some of these games. It's just going to come down to the final 5-minute stretches there that they just haven't been able to put together enough offense. And I think that they have some opportunities to have success against Ole Miss, but it's just they're in a bad funk right now, and it doesn't feel safe picking them in any game going forward. But I think they'll have a shot tomorrow at Ole Miss. Yeah.
Do you think they'll win another game?
I think they'll win one of their next 4. Yes.
Okay.
I think they'll get one more, and I think honestly, Ole Miss might be their best opportunity. So let's go for it. Yes, I say LSU wins tomorrow.
Brimming with positivity. We love to hear that from Glen West. You want some more positivity? Check him out at Go247. Let's talk some baseball. What'd you learn over the weekend in Jacksonville?
Yeah, I thought it was a really productive weekend. Obviously, when you leave 3-0 and you beat the 3 teams by a combined score of 34-11, there's going to be a lot of positive vibes coming out. I thought, for me, the starting pitching took a step up. I think outside of one inning from Kason Evans and 1 inning from Cooper Moore, it was a pretty flawless, kind of 15 innings or so that those guys pitched over the weekend. Obviously, William Schmidt was the headline there on Sunday with his performance. Got out of some trouble there late in the game, which you like to see from him in terms of his development. I think for me, though, one of the things that's kind of becoming an interesting question with this group, and it's going to be over at second base and kind of what happens when Chris Stanfield gets healthy, because I just don't think Seth Darter is a guy that you can take out of the lineup right now at second. I know Braden Simpson's been getting some work over there, and so has Tanner Reeves, but those guys have been playing really in left field since Stanfield's injury. And so what kind of happens when Stanfield does come back with both Simpson and Reeves, I think is going to be very interesting to see how they mix in those at-bats for those guys, because, in Simpson's case, too, he's been swinging the bat really well over the last week or so. So it's a good problem to have if you're LSU, but, I think we kind of have an understanding of what this lineup's going to look like when Chris Stanfield gets back, but it's just going to be about who else kind of steps up in terms of those DH bats and what kind of opportunities are still there for guys like Simpson and Reeves with, Darter playing the way that he is.
Would you play Darter at second every day?
I would, yeah, until he's, until he inevitably probably hits a little bit of a rut, and then maybe you can, get some other guys in there. But I mean, he's batting .400 with 10 RBIs, a couple home runs, has 6 extra base hits. I think through these first 8 games. So he's not only giving you something from the plate in terms of just consistency, but also some power and some extra base hits, and just really moving the offense forward well. So I would certainly keep Dardar in there until further notice.
On the mound, you mentioned Schmidt. What did you think of his Sunday effort, and what do you think the prospects are of him moving forward?
Yeah, I think he looked really good on Sunday. I thought, he got into that trouble there in the 4th inning, allowing a leadoff double, but then comes back with, three straight strikeouts. He had, the trouble there in the 5th inning where there was 2 runners in scoring position with 2 outs, and he gets the big out there, makes the big pitch there. Those are situations that maybe last year would have snowballed on him a little bit. He would have, not been able to finish that inning or allowed a couple runs to come through. And so, getting those kinds of small wins, I think, is really important for him. It's something that both he and Jay Johnson talked about after the game when I, listened to the press conference there from Jacksonville. So a really nice, positive development here. If he can keep this going, the question marks are going to be, okay, now that you have one of those outings under your belt, can you do it a second time? Can you do it a third time and a fourth time? Like, I think the consistency element is now what comes into play with Schmidt, because, we've seen the talent, and now we've seen what he can do for a full outing when he's out there and throwing the ball the way that he is. So I'm excited about him. I think, coming into the year, he was a guy that I had pegged, and I'm sure many others had pegged as like kind of one of the bigger X factors on the entire team. And if he continues to pitch the way that he did on Sunday, it's going to be very difficult for LSU to not continue starting him, and certainly for opponents to have success against this pitching staff.
What about Case and Evans through 2 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's had some rough moments. He's had some rough spots where he's gotten touched up a little bit, but I'm still a big believer in what he can do and what he can be for this team long term. I'm certainly not out on him being a starter yet. I think he just needs some more opportunities, and these are kind of what the non-conference is for. And so, I would continue starting Kaysen. I think he's I think I can't quite remember what he did on Friday outside of, maybe one inning where he, got hit a little bit, but bounced back, I think, in the 4th and 5th innings and put up a couple of zeros and, to kind of close his outing out in the right way. So, he's somebody that didn't pitch a whole ton in the fall. He didn't pitch a whole ton last summer either. So, I think there's probably a little bit more leeway there with him in terms of just getting him into the grind of the season and him getting used to being a starting pitcher. But he pitched in so many big moments for LSU last year that I don't have any long-term concerns about him or anything. I just think he needs some more experience under his belt as a starter, and LSU's going to continue rolling him out there, I think.
This may be kind of an obvious question, but just your thoughts generally. Like, how much, when you evaluate what the staff has done and look at the schedule, do you just kind of put trust in Yeskie and Jay Johnson to figure it out? Like, how much of that is your analysis of the pitching staff?
Yeah, I think it's a big part because those guys obviously know what they're doing. They've had really great success here the last couple of years and have had success in different ways too. I mean, I think this pitching staff is going to look a little bit different than last year. I don't know that you're going to have to ask Case and Evans to go 7 or 8 innings into a game like you did last year with Cade Anderson and Anthony Ianson. I think that there's real depth in this pitching staff that they're finding more and more about on a game-to-game basis. And, that really plays into this group's hands well. I think that's one of the bigger takeaways that I've kind of taken from Jay Johnson and kind of the totality of his press conferences and just the way that he talks. This is a group that's not going to have to, I think, rely on some of these guys to have to play so big roles on a game-to-game basis from the mound because they feel like they have a really good offense with, really consistent hitting. And if those guys just on the mound just go out there and do their job once, twice through the rotation, I think that they feel very confident of handing it off to the next guy. And I think that's maybe a little bit of a different way of winning than they have had here in recent years.
No Zach Cowan, no Jaden Newt over the weekend. Do you expect to see them this evening?
Yeah, I think so. I think those two. I think Reagan Ricken's a guy that you'd love to get out there for some more time on the mound, and I think those are three guys that you could certainly see. I think Zion Theophilus is a freshman. Has been really impressive to me, and I think he had the one outing last week where he issued a couple walks, but everybody I talked to that says he's just been a consistent strike thrower for LSU going back to the fall. So he's somebody that I think is going to get some opportunities tonight as well. And that's what these midweek games are for, is to get a lot of guys involved, maybe in the game plan that didn't get involved over the weekend. And so you can hopefully get some outings out there, some outings for Cowan in particular, some innings in particular for him that he can build on for this weekend, because they're going to need him to be sharp going forward. Like, he's going to have to still be a big part of this bullpen. Hasn't been the cleanest start for him this year. I'm sure he'd like to through two outings, but I think this is a perfect opportunity to get some zeros up there and build some momentum and confidence going into this weekend.
Total gear shift on you here over to the football and the combine, but LSU sending more than 10 to the combine. Anybody that you're going to be curious to watch some numbers on, or be curious on their evaluation up in Indianapolis?
Yeah, I think for me, and I wrote about this morning, Harold Perkins is a guy that I think just can thrive in this setting. I mean, he's obviously an elite athlete. He's got great measurements in terms of his speed and his quickness, and certainly his ability to make plays. I think he's somebody that can certainly thrive and build on some draft stock here this week. I think the linebackers go on Thursday, Friday, so he'll be one of the first players for LSU that's in Indianapolis and watching. So I'll be interested to see what kind of 40 time he runs, what kind of news comes out about NFL teams and where they think he could go. And then certainly Garrett Nussmeier is another one where can he continue to build on that performance there at the Senior Bowl in that week. I think he's somebody that is kind of firmly in that day two range, but can he continue to kind of raise his stock a little bit more and maybe get into that QB3 conversation behind Mendoza and a couple other guys.
Let's hope so. I'm pulling for Garrett after a tough senior season. Let's hope he can build on a good Senior Bowl week and have a good combine as well. If you want to read about it, you can at Go247, team coverage, recruiting coverage as well. Glen and the crew have you covered over there. He's with us on Tuesdays. Thanks, man.
All right. Thanks, Hunt.
Let me remind you about my friends at Boudreaux's Electrical Services. They don't call it over-planning at Boudreaux's Electrical Services. They call it foresight. Be prepared for the next power outage with the Generac Home Standby Generator. That power outage might come from a hurricane, might come from one of those nasty afternoon thunder showers we have, might come from a winter event. But you don't have to worry about any of that, because your home standby generator is going to kick on and you'll be unaffected. After sensing a power outage, the Generac Home Standby Generator automatically restores that home's power, whether you're home or away. And that's great, because might be at home when that happens. You're not interrupted. You might evacuate for a hurricane. And how awful is it when you come back and the house is 98 degrees and the fridge hadn't been running and you got to throw everything out? It's just a nightmare. But if you do leave town and come back after a storm and the generator's been running, you come back to a home that's like you never left. Call my friends at Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Neil and Melissa have been running this thing for 40 years. It's a local shop in an industry that's kind of been bought up by the national folks, not Boudreaux's Electrical. They've been at it for 40 years. So go ahead and stop by their location down there in Donaldsonville. Got another one in Gonzales as well. You can always give them a call. 985-397-1562. 985-397-1562 or 225-300-9389. That is my friends at Boudreaux's Electrical Services. We will come back, close out the hour. Got some news on the positive side for LSU Hoops last night. We'll talk about it next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
From Boudreaux's to First American Bank and Trust. First American Bank and Trust started up in 1910, still here 116 years later, 25 locations throughout Southeast Louisiana. So there's always one near you. You got a commercial loan that you're looking to get? First American Bank and Trust. Got a personal loan you're looking to get? First American Bank and Trust. Why? Why would you go with First American Bank and Trust? Well, every decision that's made at First American Bank and Trust is made locally. The folks that work at First American Bank and Trust, they're local. They're part of your community. In fact, their management averages 25 years with the bank. It's that community feel that you're looking for when people are making decisions about your business, about your home. And they've got the resources necessary to provide the services that you're looking for. That's why they got 25 locations throughout the Southeast. So whether you're in St. Tammany, Tangipahoa, right here in Baton Rouge, Dutchtown, Jones Creek, St. James, St. John, Lafourche, wherever you are, there's a location near you at First American Bank and Trust. All decisions made locally by people in your community. Keep that in mind. It's First American Bank and Trust.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Gotros Outdoor Power, family owned and operated, 22 years in business, Baton Rouge and Gonzales. Of course, you can find them on Airline Highway in Baton Rouge. If you're on Airline Highway and you look over to the side and see that massive mountain of orange equipment, that's Gotros Outdoor Power. They've got the largest parts inventory in the state of Louisiana, and they're the largest hustler inventory in the state by a long, long shot. Look, they've got trucks on the road all day long, all over the state. So if you don't have a trailer and you need to buy a zero-turn mower, they can get that to you quickly. If you're looking for equipment, you're looking for parts, they can get it to you quickly. They've got just an incredible team of on-site helpers that are going to help you get behind the wheel of that zero-turn mower. And they got financing available, 0%. They can get you behind the wheel of a new mower for less than $100 a month. How much do you spend to get that grass cut? Like $75 a week? Get one of those hustler mowers and handle it yourself. It's about time that the grass is going to start growing around here. So I want to remind you of my good friends over there at Gotros Outdoor Power. Open Monday through Saturday, half days on Saturday. But go by and see them 6 days a week at Gotros Outdoor Power. 2 locations, Baton Rouge and Gonzales. Interesting news last night. I'm scrolling through on the old Twitter machine, and I see that LSU basketball got a commitment, and I honestly wasn't really expecting that. You probably weren't either. So I looked up. It was from Owen Foxwell, whose story is interesting, and it's a new age deal. Owen Foxwell is 6'2". He's a guard. He's from Australia, and he started playing professionally 5 years ago. He's a 22-year-old that will be a freshman next year. Now, I'm aware, just as you are, things can change here, right? No one's burying their head in the sand on this. But this is a guy who averaged 20 points a game on a championship team last year in Australia. This year he's playing for Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, averaging 11 points and 4.5 assists. His brother Joel plays for Portland, where McKinnon comes from. And he's averaging 16 points per game at Portland. He dropped 26 on Gonzaga back on February the 4th. So this is a guy that's got obviously roots in Australia. David Patrick has roots in Australia, and LSU has been committed to trying to go out and find some international players. Of course, Ron Zipper has not gotten a lot of time this year, but you do have some international flavor on this roster. McKinnon is an Aussie. Obviously, Pablo Tamba is an international player, and they go out and get Owen Foxwell. The guys who study this kind of stuff say he's a really good player and a really good scorer. But again, we know that the next 3 weeks could involve some upheaval with LSU basketball. They could not. I don't know. And we've heard Matt talk about this, Matt Moscona, not Matt McMahon. Matt Moscona say, look, you've got to make some financial decisions here. We've heard Verge Osbury speak on this and say, hey, look, LSU basketball should be in the NCAA tournament. Well, you're looking at a basketball team right now that is in dead last in the SEC and has lost 5 games in a row, has lost 8 out of 9, and is currently 2-12 in the league. So it's a situation where Matt McMahon's got 3 high schoolers, and this player is an international guy signed or committed in this class. And if LSU decides that they want to continue with Matt McMahon, like, that's the group that is going to come with him. But no one is blind to LSU's record at this point, being 2-12 in the league. You're going on the road tomorrow to play Ole Miss. You got a home game against a terrible Oklahoma team, and then you're at Auburn, and then you play Texas A&M. So look, you got 4 games to go, 2 at home, 2 on the road. None against the very, very top of the league. A&M is close to that echelon, but this is a very possible 2-16 team in year 4. At best, it's 3-15. Like, that's best case scenario. If you got them winning 2 more games, I'd like to kind of understand how. But I hope they win 4 more games. But it's a deal where it's hard to throw your hands around a recruiting win at this point, looking at the basketball program in the state that it's in, considering that over the course of the last 9 games, your only win is an overtime win over a South Carolina team that is putrid. So it's been a tough go for LSU basketball. Everyone's aware of that. Like, they played on Saturday. I mentioned it for 11 seconds. We did not mention the LSU-Bama basketball game one time on Friday's show. Like, y'all know, it pains me to do that. I want to talk about the basketball team. I want to pay attention to basketball. I want to be breaking down bracketologies and looking at the bubble, and I want to be invested in that. But the fact of the matter is you're just not. You're not even close. So good news for Matt McMahon to get a commitment. We'll see if he ever dribbles a basketball in Baton Rouge or if he hangs out in Melbourne a little bit longer. I guess you're going to see a significant influx of international players into the collegiate ranks as long as the money's this good. And as long as you can come in at 22 years of age and play in the college ranks as a freshman at 23, that's a pretty good gig if you can get it, if it pays pretty well. We'll see if Owen Foxwell ever plays a game in Baton Rouge. That, I guess, remains to be seen. Missed any of our first hour? Catch it on demand wherever you find your sound. Open the show. Kind of talking about Stephen Milam. We got a column up on LouisianaSports.net talking about how he doesn't grab any headlines, but that's what makes him so good, is that he just does the little things that don't necessarily show up. I talked a little about that. Saints mock draft. They're going to have some really great options. Talked about that. You can find it at Hunt on Saints. Glen West talking Tigers with us and a little basketball as well. Plenty to do after we pause for SportsCenter in hour number 2. Preview LSU and McNeese tonight. A couple guys that I want to see excel. Got some key college football returners for this coming season. Sharif Eichstack talking Saints as well after SportsCenter.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Marucci. Go check it out. Go take a tour at Marucci. Such a great tour. It's an awesome facility, and it's just such a cool thing to watch where they cut 1,200 bats every day. And now you realize that spring training is underway. They're sending them to the Texas League, to the Cactus League, to the Grapefruit League. You'll have a lot of folks swinging Marucci bats in the World Baseball Classic, LSU, of course, as well. And if you'd like to go see where they do all of that, you can over at Marucci. Check them out at maruccisports.com/campus-tour and buy your tickets. Every single ticket comes with a 20% discount in the campus tour store and in the hitter's house. You want to go in there and take some hacks with a youth baseball team, youth softball team? You can do that over at Marucci. Go see where they make the official bat of Major League Baseball. What a gem here in Baton Rouge. They're online at maruccisports.com/campus-tour. That's maruccisports.com.